Hey, Green Machine friends and fans of fun. We are ready for this week's comic wrap up. It's a really good week for comics. Did we get any comic news? We're gonna do a comic news show. We're gonna.
We got those two rumors that we just talked about.
I don't want to spread rumors.
But they were on Twitter pages and such.
I don't want to spread rumors.
Alex Ross hashtagged it.
I don't want to spread rumors. I don't know.
Came from Marvel.
Let's wait and see on those. But we were thinking of doing a comic news show because we get a lot of news in the store, and people kind of expect us to be in the know. So we were thinking of doing something like that.
Yeah.
So maybe next week.
We hear a lot of rumors too.
We hear a lot of rumors, but I don't like reporting rumors because, we've got a few people that are pretty unreliable in the rumors, so we don't like to do that sort of thing. But take it off. So, okay. So we got to start on. Let's see. This week's first comic is the Black Label Superman Year One, and it's written by Frank Miller. And Frank Miller holds a special place in my heart. I know. We know. I don't want to say who this person is, but we know somebody who is a bigger comics fanatic than us that does not like Frank Miller at all.
Yes.
And but I grew up reading those Dark Knight Returns runs, and I really like them. So I don't know. However, it's good. So there are some things I liked about it, some things I loved about it, some things I'm still sort of on the fence. So let's go over. This is obviously Superman Year One is going to be a retelling of Superman's origin. However, this is the Black Label, and I was reminded by one of our other employees that the Black Label is not main continuity, so we need to remember this. So it could be, considering that it's Frank Miller writing it, it could be tied to the actual Dark Knight Returns, because we don't know enough about that Superman. However, they've changed some of his origin. It has changed, so it's not the same sort of stagnant story. Well, I wouldn't say the OG Superman is a stagnant story. Let me axe that. It's not the story you know perfectly, is what I mean to say. So they've changed it up, so you won't be bored. You'll have something new. That's what I meant to say. Sorry about that. However, there are a couple things. I don't know. I thought the beginning was not that strong, but then again, I measure every Superman story against All-Star Superman, which is a hard thing to counter. Because what is it? Doomed Planet, Desperate Scientists, Last Hope. That intro is probably one of the best. Do they reference this in this? Yes, they do. At one point, they sort of reference that whole thing. They word it in a different way. It has to do with something else. But Superman himself is dealing with stuff we don't normally see him deal with. And that's he's growing up. He was in his high school or junior high school dealing with bullies that were just escalating the situation. And, how does Superman handle it? Well, handles it in a very Superman-like way. But, so that was nice to see. I haven't seen too much of that. There are some other things. Where he goes after high school, I think, is a bit different. And so I'm kind of excited to see how this plays out. The art, I mean, it's John Romita Jr. I like John Romita Jr. I like Frank Miller, so I'm perfectly comfortable with this. I think there are little nitpicks here and there that I didn't like. It's way more Kansas than I'm used to for a Superman story, which is weird to say, but you'll see when you read it. There's a lot of references to rhubarb and a lot of sort of, it feels like 1950s type speak at times. Granted, I'm not from Kansas. Maybe that's the case, but I don't usually get that sense in the Superman origin stories. Not so much. I mean, yeah, he's from Smallville, but it almost feels cheesy at times, is probably the bad problem with that. But I liked it. I really, really did like it. I'm not trying to undersell it. It's a really good showing, and I can't wait to see where it goes. So, yeah, Superman Year One, come pick this up. It's great. Next, plus you get a trade paperback. This is the same thing they did with Batman Damned, isn't it? Yeah. I like that they're doing this with the Black Label stuff. That's absurdly cool. Plus his new look is dope.
Yeah, the chin that was throwing me off.
Yeah, he does have a Solomon Grundy type chin, it looks like.
Chin goes past his shoulder right there. And it's
I don't think it's past his shoulder. I think it's in front. but it's like definitely a big chin.
Yeah, it's messing with me.
It's a big chin for sure. It does. It looks way more Grundy than Superman. But I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. It's pretty good so far. Next is Gretel. Gretel sucks. I'm sorry. I know that we have people that like some of the Zenoscope stuff, and some of it's good. Like I like the Oz stuff. This felt way too much like a watered down Crossed. That's exactly what it felt like, was a watered down Crossed. And you know why? If you read Crossed, you should know that. Well, I mean, if you're reading Crossed, you know that Garth Ennis is an edgy edgelord. Like, you expect that sort of thing. Zenoscope to me is like the softcore version of. I mean, not Zenoscope. Gretel to me is like the softcore version of Crossed. It was not my jam. I don't even think you should show Crossed. Here's Crossed. You won't find it on our shelves. You'll need a special order because, oh my God, there is some stuff in here.
It's super brutal.
I forgot how brutal Ennis is. But so this is like, it felt like a watered down version of it. The other thing is, I don't know, something about the art weirds me out, and I can't put my finger on it. Because it's perfectly good art, it just at times feels a little generic, and I'm not sure why.
Huh.
But I didn't like this one as much as I liked, was it Oz? Oz. It was Oz. I read the Oz one, and I liked that one. And then, what are the other stuff? The Grimm's Fairy Tales is not Zenoscope, is it?
I want to say yes. They do the Dragon's Blood as well.
Okay, the Dragon's Blood I think was okay. But Gretel, I don't know, maybe this is your jam. If you like magic and sort of a rehashing of fairy tales into sort of sinister stuff, maybe. It just, I don't know. Come check it out if that's your jam. Next is something I really loved, but we need to talk about Sheree, because like
that cover says a lot.
That cover says a lot. Clearly, she's taken up the mantle of Black Panther again. I love everything they've been doing with Sheree. Sheree's been a fun run. However, she needs a new antagonist. She needs a new villain because Giant Space Grasshopper is getting a bit old, getting a bit long in the tooth now. I'm tired of dealing with this problem. I want like an actual villain to go up against her. However, I loved everything about this book. The story's good. The art, again, I really like the art. I always have a good time. These feel like genuine good escapist comics. I love them. So, Sheree, yeah, go buy this. I probably already spoiled too much by saying that the Giant Space Grasshopper is in play. But you probably know that. It's been in play for 9 books now. I'm tired of the Space Grasshopper. But everything else about Sheree is amazing. Storm is in it, and I love Storm's look. There is a character named Muty. Guess what he is? A mutant.
Oh. Gas.
Nonetheless, good showing for Sheree. Next is Uncanny XMen, since we're talking about mutants. This centers around the sort of the cure for mutants, which is like an injection, which you can get your kid inoculated against the mutant gene. And so what happens is they task Dark Beast with how to counter the inoculation for the mutant gene. And he comes up with a way, a surefire way to counter it, and it's messed up. I can't spoil it. I think reading it for that alone is really, really cool. Because as messed up as it is, I would have never thought to do this sort of thing. And which says a lot for him as a villain, and this story the story as a whole. Like, Rosenberg goes to weird places that I would never expect to go to. So I really like his writing. However, he's finishing Uncanny, isn't he? Like, they're doing House of X and Powers of X.
Yeah. Popping up next.
Yeah, those are popping up next. So they're going to consolidate the X-Men titles. And those, at the helm of those is, what's his name?
Oh, God.
Starts with an H.
Oh,
Hickman. I have traumatic brain injury, so I struggle with names.
I'm just slow.
But yeah, so Hickman's going to be at the helm for those. So that's I think every X-Men fan has roamed through our store and been asking for Hickman stuff these days. And that's because he's being put back in charge of those. So that should be a good showing. The next book on our list is Guardians of the Galaxy, and this was awesome. This was absolutely awesome. First of all, the Dark Guardians and the Guardians come together. They've got to deal with Thanos trying to get a new body. It plays out really well. The fights were great. Beta Ray Bill, hammer in hand, being Beta Ray Bill is always awesome to me. And it sets the stage for how the Guardians team is going to be. So when the dust settles, some members leave and some members stay. And I like the new team a lot. I like them quite a bit. So, yeah. So, Guardians of the Galaxy, I think if you're a Marvel fan, you should have already been on board with the Guardians of the Galaxy, but this is an absolutely great showing, so go pick this up. Next is one that I'm happy to say was a great showing this week, because I've been giving it a hard time, and I don't know why. Like, I love Ta-Nehisi Coates. However, I have not had a good time with this Cap run. It felt like every issue was calling Cap Captain Hydra. It was all about ripping him down. I mean, he was in prison, which is where this picks off. However, this felt great, okay? Cap's in prison, right? He's in prison. He's got to break out. What's he got to do? He's got to rally the troops. What kind of troops you find in prisons?
I don't know, criminals?
Criminals! So he's got to rally the troops, which are criminals. However, it plays out really awesome. It felt like old Cap. And ultimately, when it plays out, the wrong way, because what happens when you rally criminals, that felt great too. Like, even Cap had to admit, oh, okay. So this is, honestly, if you're a Cap fan, this is a must-read. This feels like old Cap. It finally feels like they're stepping back into what I want from Cap. And I know it's been a long run, and maybe that's the whole point of his run, was to tear him down as far as you can go and then build him back up. But this issue felt great. I imagine the next few issues are going to feel 1,000 times better. So I'm actually hyped and on board for this. So the Captain America number 11 this week, go read it. It's great. Next is Samurai Jack, Lost Worlds. And, well, we got 2 Samurai stories this week.
Yeah.
And one of them I'm super hyped about. And this one, I didn't know I was going to be that hyped about, but this one was great.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I don't know how to talk about it without spoiling it, but basically the build-up is Jack is in a bar, and he's sort of, trying to get some food and whatever else, and somebody tells him that there's a haunted village, and he's like, I don't have time for superstition, and they're like, no, legitimately, it's haunted. So he goes to check out the village, and what plays out is a bit unexpected, but not unexpected if you know Samurai Jack, because you're used to sort of weird surprises in episodes. Yeah. But I like the way it played out. It really does. This comic feels like the old cartoon, and that's all we really wanted out of it. I do want a better bad guy. I want a long-running bad guy for him to war with. We haven't gotten that yet, but, it's issue 2. So, good showing, Samurai Jack. I'd say go pick this up. This is IDW, and IDW is doing some great things with this brand. Next is Batman number 73. Now, we need to talk about what's going on here without spoiling it, and it's hard. So a lot happens in this one. We know that Batman was strapped up to the machine. He was having the nightmares. Right. We know he lost it after he came out of it. He was frantic about Bane. He smacked somebody in the Bat family. And that's where this one picks up. Like, he's beaten, and he's basically being dragged out to the desert by Thomas Wayne, the Flashpoint Batman. And he's being told that, Batman is essentially dead. Like, it's done. It's done. Bane has won, and he's broken you, and now, in a way, we're gonna unmake you. And that's where this picks up. And it's kind of wild, because I never in my life thought about doing something like this, but yeah, that would unmake Batman. So I think if you're a Batman fan, and I know it's been a rough month with the whole Tom King news and the Warner Brothers stuff, or not Warner, but DC Comics, AT&T, yeah. So anyways, but this 73 is a must-read if you're a Batman fan, because what they're planning on doing, I've never seen them do something quite like that in the Batman mythos, and that really would change things. So I'd like to see this happen. So go. Well, I don't know if I want to see it happen. We could have a giant discussion on the psychological pros, cons, whether or not this would change things, whether it's too late in the game, whether trust me, this opens up like room for a lot of conversations. So Batman number 73, I would say, is a must buy if you're a Batman fan, and if you're a DC fan, I don't think you should dip your toes in 73. Maybe go back to a few issues before Nightmares, but 73 is a really good showing, and the art is amazing, and more importantly, I think one of the cover artists got taken off, like they changed the issue because the storyline changed so much. So one of the cover artists was on Twitter this week talking about, it was just kind of sad to see the cover go, but the cover is amazing. Like, you need to go see that cover. So yeah, Batman 73, go check this out. Okay, our next book this week is Lords, and I'm gonna call this generic Lantern Corps. I mean, don't get me wrong, it felt actually pretty good. So a bunch of people wake up on a starship. Well, they wake up in a prison of sorts, being held against their will, and a voice is telling them, hey, wake up, you're a god. Which I've always wanted to have happen to me. I don't know about you, but each one of these characters has a color that represents them. One is orange, one is yellow, one is green, and one is red. And I'm sure eventually they'll meet the other Lantern Corps, and they'll summon a white lantern, and then black lanterns will attack. However, honestly, this was a pretty good showing from Valiant. I had a good time with it. I don't know if it's Valiant's take on. I mean, maybe it just felt to me like generic Lantern Corps, but I have a thing about Lantern Corps. So it felt pretty good. It was a good showing. I want to know more about these characters. The art I was kind of on the fence about, because it sort of feels like that sort of pencil sketches that are not always quite inked over, so I get a little iffy about that style of art. However, pretty good showing. Go pick this up. It's a number one. It's from Valiant. It's Lords, and I liked it.
So not a lot of people know this about
Yeah.
you, but you are a DC fanboy.
Oh yeah.
And you like Green Lantern.
Yeah.
So to the Green Lantern fans, jump in.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
It really, and I mean, who hasn't wanted to be woken up to somebody telling them that they're a god now? You know? And Ray, when someone asks you if you're a god,
You say
yes. Okay. Next is, I don't know why it put that Lego, that Chinese knockoff Lego thing in my head, the Grab Gatos team. So if you don't know, you can buy, and I don't recommend it because it's really sort of knockoff generic stuff, and it's not supporting like the company you want to support. But you can buy generic Chinese Legos that are the same sets. They're essentially complete ripoffs, but they've changed the names. And the Ghostbusters one is called Grab Gatos Team. And it's not even Ghost, it's GTOST, Gatost. So, Dave, if someone asks you if you're a deity, you say, okay. It's all generic. Dial Grab Gatos Team. So,
we're ready to believe in what you say.
Let me check the DKE meter. I'm sorry. This is just going to be us spazzing out for like the next 20 minutes. Okay, next is something I was really happy to see this week, and that is Usagi number 1. I don't hide it all that often. I'm pretty open about loving TMNT and Usagi. I should say it right, the Usagi. But so Usagi's back, and it's a really good showing, and it opens very strong. I knew the second I saw this character. It's the Demon Hunter. I can't really remember his name. It's the Demon Hunter, but whenever you see him, you know that Usagi is dealing with pretty much all the supernatural stuff. And so that's what this is setting us up for. And it's a great showing. It's really good. It's everything I wanted out of an Usagi comic. And on top of that, there is some legitimate creepy stuff where I was like, ooh, that's a little wicked. So yeah, can't wait to read the rest of this. It's a number 1. Go pick it up. If you're a TMNT fan, sorry, my voice is being weird all the time. If you're a TMNT fan, if you're an old school Usagi fan, if you just want to jump in on some samurai fiction, And I think if you like Hillbilly, you'd like Usagi because Hillbilly plays out like an Usagi book.
Like
It really does. The Lone Samurai Wandering is what it feels like. So this is a really, really good showing. More importantly, did you know there is a billion variants for various comic shops and cons and stuff that they've done for this issue? I had no idea there were so many. We don't get these mystical. You need to buy more comics so that we can get to this level so we can give you these rare variants. But oh man, that's awesome. Also, hey, we need to carry this Godzilla Kingdom of Monsters. It's an Eric Powell.
Oh.
So
Okay.
we should get that trade.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right. That's a name drop.
The comic shop owner and me is just. We just mentioned Hillbilly too.
Yeah, we did.
We did. That's a very appropriate ad to be in there.
Segue.
Okay, so Usagi, go pick it up. Next is Justice League 26, and okay, let's be honest. The last issue we had a punch delivered from Soups that felt
Generational punch.
so good. It was it had like Jonathan Kent Sr. on the bottom, his Soup's dad, and then it had like Jonathan Kent Jr. on top, Superboy, and it was such a good punch. Like he destroyed like half of North America. Oh, it felt so good. I took that picture and I made it my screensaver on my phone.
Just such a good thing.
Okay. So we knew after that punch. I knew reading that issue. I was like, the next issue is not going to be as awesome because I'm going to be comparing it to that last issue. And I was right. Basically, the last issue, it was revealed that Luthor had pretty much given the world, explained the ultimatum to the world that the multiverse was traveling, and you could either run in fear of evil and support justice and die whimpering, or you could grab hold and die screaming, is how he put it. And he said that he was going to be giving his riches and his wealth and all his wonderful toys to whoever embraced doom. And then he killed himself. So we got to the end of that last issue and we saw that Luthor had brought himself back, and he looks gnarly with like gray skin, and he's a clone, yeah. And on top of that, he's got like a robe that he's wearing. Well, this one opens where people are claiming that the robed Luthor, the reincarnated Luthor, has given them something, that they've seen him. And it's like a woman is talking about her husband who was a bad husband and used to beat her or something, and now he's disappeared because Luthor gave her something, and she's so empowered. And then like it's cuts to another one that's like a guy was dealing with his awful slumlord of a landlord, and Luthor gave him something, and now his landlord lives in fear, and like it goes on. And so all these people are explaining that they met with Luthor, but none of it's true. None of it's true.
Oh wow.
Martian Manhunter is tuned in, and he realizes that these people are lying, but it's being staged, and what it is doing is it is generating a rumor, and it's getting people wanting to go over to the side of Doom because they think they're going to get some free stuff
Like a studio.
yeah. So it's rather genius. I think it's a really, really genius ploy and a genius way to win people over. It's viral marketing at its finest. But so I like that part of it. They do something else. They have the Hall of Heroes in this. If you don't know who the Hall of Heroes is, it's basically the multiverse version of the Justice League. It's where whenever the multiverse needs to meet up, everybody from the Justice League goes there and handles things. You will see two very iconic Batmen. A certain Batman that has been in other books recently that we were happy to see tied to the mainline universe in Batman Who Laughs. That's in this. And then there's another Superman from something to do with Alex Ross.
What?
So I was like cheering when I saw these characters. So I was pretty hyped about that. Snyder totally knows how to appeal to the fanboy in me. That said, this book was a bit weaker than the last book, but they're starting something. They're going to something new, the next phase of the Year of Villains. However, it was still a really strong showing. The weakest Snyder showing is still like some of the strongest showings for other writers. So go pick this up for sure. Justice League. If you aren't on board with Justice League and you are a DC fan, I would have to question if something's wrong with you at this point. It's so good. Next is Assassination. And we this is book 3. I kind of skipped book 2. Book 1 was like, hey, we got the best assassins in the Oh, is it book 4? I skipped book 2 and 3. Book 1 was, hey, we got the best assassins in the world all assembled, because that's a good idea. And what happens if you assemble the best assassins in the world and everybody knows who the number 1 is?
Battle Royale?
They all start killing each. Yeah. It was Fortnite. It was Assassin Fortnite. That's what happened in the first one, and apparently that's what's been happening throughout this. And so they're sort of dealing with this. They're guarding a high-value target. Meanwhile, they're trying to get to the bottom of it. So it's a good showing. I've been having a great time with this Image Skybound book. It's not a bad book by any means. I kind of wish I'd read the other 2, but this is still a really good showing. If you haven't jumped in on Assassination yet, come on through and pick it up. Next is Daredevil. And no devils, only gods. Now, this is part 2 to something that's been going on, but it's basically Daredevil has retired. And in retirement, because he's just decided that he's had enough of it, he's trying to distance himself from it, but it doesn't matter because other people, as apparent in this book, you can't take the devil out of Hell's Kitchen because other people are starting to pick up the mantle, which is kind of cool to see. And on top of that, Daredevil does something, I've seen him do similar stuff, but something involving his hearing and how to get things handled, even if you aren't wearing the mantle. So I kind of liked seeing that too. So there is some interesting stuff going on in this, and there is some stuff that I'd like to talk more about, but I can't talk too much about without spoiling it. But this Daredevil run has been pretty darn good, and I think it's everything that as a fan of Daredevil back in the day, this is everything you really want out of Daredevil these days. Now, keep in mind, I'm nervous to say that because his book was not great before they sort of faux killed him off, I guess, and relaunched it. Zdarsky is doing a pretty darn good job with this right now, so go pick this up if you're a Daredevil fan. Next is Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and well, I don't know where to begin with this. It's Sabrina, but it's the kind of old school Sabrina episode mixed with some of the new. So Sabrina, it starts out, Sabrina's being dragged into the forest by a monster, a rather weird looking monster, I guess you could say, and then she's sort of got to figure it out. But, dragging a witch into the forest, they reference that in this too. They're dragging a witch into a forest, like, that's stupid. You just gave them the home game. Yeah, they're on their home turf now.
Here, take this gun.
But this Sabrina run, it's pretty good. My problems with it is I really like the new Netflix Sabrina, and I liked that trade paperback. So this one is at times feels a little more lighthearted and not what I'm used to now. It's weird to say because I was used to the old Sabrina, and then I like the new Sabrina, and now I'm kind of it's hard to go back. You can't go home. But nonetheless, it's still a good showing. And if you like that lesser dark stuff, you wanted a little more lighthearted stuff, you really couldn't go too wrong with this new Sabrina run. It's pretty good. Next is Invisible Kingdom, and this is G. Willow Wilson. So I have to tell you, I read the first one, and I didn't read 2 and 3. And this basically centers around people that, at first they have to take a pilgrimage, and they willingly blind themselves and try to wander to where this temple is. And then they'll join the order, and they wear these like big wide brim hats that hide their eyes so they never see. And it's essentially like they look like mushrooms, like they're mushroom priestess.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of weird. And then it takes place in space and sci-fi. And the main character, there's 2 main characters. One of them doesn't like the order and knows the order is corrupt. The other one is sort of, she's in the order, and she sees that one member of the order is corrupt, but is refusing to give up the order, even though, she says one person corrupt does not mean the whole order is corrupt. And so it's really cool to see. It's like faith meeting somebody who is grounded in, I guess, science, I guess is how you put it. And coming in with this sci-fi landscape in the background, it's really cool to see. I want to see more. There's a lot of politics in this issue, so if politics is not your jam, you might not like it. But there's sort of like dealing with politics, nations, soldiers. I guess not nations, but space nations. I don't know what you'd call them. Galactic orders. Yeah, and religion. and all of it. And on top of that, the art is really, really cool. Like, I really like this art. I'm not sure why. It's like strange, like it's strange sci-fi ethereal watercolors is what it feels like at times. And I know it's not watercolors because they're way too like bright, but that's what it feels like. So go check this out. This is a really good showing, Invisible Kingdom. And I know, like, it kind of flies off our shelves at times, it seems like. So, yeah. So go pick that up. G. Willow Wilson. Next is we're going to dip into the War of the Realms stuff. And let's see, Spider-Man League of Realms. So Spider-Man has been leading a league, and he wound up taking, like, one of the angels into his, I guess, the league, which sort of divided them because I guess the angels are bad guys in the whole Thor mythos or something. So, yeah, so that was kind of cool to see. On top of that, they've been dealing with the fact that Curse is not who they think Curse is. Like, Curse is a character that is basically, it has to do the bidding of whoever is in control of it, and they feel pain, and they don't have, like, a lot of will. And they look like this crazy, almost Minotaur armored type stuff. So they've got to deal with that, and it turns out Curse is one of the former members of the League. And they don't know that, and the character can't reveal that, so they've got to sort of figure out how to deal with this. So that is kind of cool to see. I won't say it's the strongest showing of all of the League of Realms stuff. It's not. I kind of feel like the characters I care about on this team are like Screwbeard and Spider-Man and maybe the gunslinger elf, and that's about it. It's hard to say that. But if you're looking for a strong War of the Realms book, I would say go read the mainline or go read almost anything else. For some reason, this one started out strong, and I never really bonded with the characters. But we've got it. If you've been reading League of the Realms, you know who, or Spider-Man and the League of the Realms, you know who you are. Go check this one out. Anyone else, maybe skip this one. Okay. The next book is War of the Realms War Scrolls, and this one, this one is so good. Like I had such a good time with, I think, the first one. I had such a good time with this one. So it's divided up into 3 stories. The first one always centers around Daredevil as the God without fear, which is really, really cool to see him in that role. And so he's dealing with stuff and sort of being, he's in control of the Bifrost, but there is no Bifrost. And that some of that comes into play in this and how it works out. It was really cool to see. So the first story was dope. The second story centers around Doom and Latvia, and Doom sort of getting to the breaking point with this invasion. And that was awesome to see too. Like, I love how you know everything. How much do you know about Doom and Latvia?
So he did not start off as king of Latvia. He started off in the forest with his mother.
But,
his mother was a witch.
But he is like the absolute ruler of Latvia, right?
I think there was one timeline where someone flat out said, ruler for Earth, the best person would be Doom.
Yeah. And so the whole thing is he's seeing the future, and the future to him is if Doom doesn't rule, then mankind is doomed. So that's why he's always like, yeah. So there's a whole bunch of things about Latvia and Doom that is ridiculously cool. One of the things is, they changed the words of songs in popular songs, modern songs, classic rock songs. There's like a Beatles song, like All You Need Is Doom. Like it's not in this issue, but it is in another issue. So they do all that sort of stuff. They worship Doom, and they pretty much refer to him as a god in the country. And so that's cool to see. But on top of that, they've fleshed out more of like the Latvia lore in this. They've got the word for defeat, and the word for defeat is essentially it's akin to like death. Just if you're defeated, you may as well die. And so that's covered in this. So that was a really, really cool thing. On top of that, I don't know. I like the Latvia lore because it's the strangest dictatorship that sort of reminds me of like North Korea and other creepy stuff. Yeah. So yeah, it's cool to see. The last story was kind of the weakest for the weirdest of reasons. It centers around She-Hulk and Freya, and there's sort of some tension there because She-Hulk has been dating Thor, and Freya doesn't know that. That's her son, So there is some tension there. My problem with the story wasn't the writing. The writing was good. The art was strange, really really weird. I don't know where the artist was going with this, but there were times where it showed like She-Hulk and Thor embracing, and it was almost like her arms were eating him. It was weird to see.
You talking about that cover art too?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know. It was no. I don't think it was the cover art. I don't know where they were going with it, but it was a strange direction. And even at the end, I don't know who the artist was on it, but it was kind of, it felt off. Whereas the other stories felt really really good. So I don't know. But this was a great showing. It was a really really good comic. And you might like the art. You know, I'm kind of picky about my art, but yeah, War Scrolls #3. If you're in the War of the Realms stuff, if you're looking for a good War of the Realms book, these ones you really can't go wrong with. They're 3-part stories, and I don't feel like you have to know the other parts to get the stories. So go check them out. Next is Star Wars Dr. Aphra, and you know, for a character I didn't know much about, I really love this character. Like she bounces back and forth between Imperial, between Rebel, between doing her own thing. She's very very cloudy in her goals. She's just trying to survive at times. And there are times where it becomes apparent that the rebels at times are doing stuff that is almost as bad as the Empire. And that comes into play in this. And so, like, it's really, really cool to see how that stuff plays out. And who's the writer for this? It's Spurrier. I can't say I know Spurrier. Do you?
No.
Okay. So, anyways, yeah, Dr. Aphra, it says unspeakable rebel super weapon. And I want to talk about it, but I don't want to spoil it. It centers around a weapon called the Far Killer. Too much like Star Killer. It weirds me out. The Far Killer. It's a sniper rifle that it's powered by a lightsaber. It destroys a lightsaber to fire it, and it does some massive damage. And so, yeah, the rebels are going to pick it apart and build something. I can't spoil it for you, but you have to go check it out. This is a really cool showing. If you're reading Star Wars books and you aren't reading Dr. Aphra, you need to go read it. Because on top of that, like, she has 2 droids that cruise around with her that are essentially evil C-3PO and R2-D2. And that's really cool to see, too. So go check this out.
Dude, I gotta add, I don't know if it was a lucid dream or what, but I think Dr. Aphra is gonna be in a game coming up. I can't recall.
Or you think maybe she's in the new Jedi one?
Maybe. Or there's that other one that's on there, too. I don't know. I'll add it in right here if it's the case.
Okay, I'd like to see that. Next is Miles Morales, Spider-Man, A Day in the Lives. A Day in the Lives. Because he does live 2 lives. So, Spider-Man, if you aren't reading Miles Morales, why? Like, this is probably the best Spider-Man title on our shelves these days. I mean, and that's weird to say because I have a really good time with Amazing, but I have the best time with Miles. I'm not sure why that is.
It's got that adventure feel to it.
Who's writing it? Saladin Ahmed. Well, he's an amazing writer. Yeah, but it really feels like the old Spider-Man where he was sort of getting his footing, you know, the sort of, I guess the Ditko Stan Lee is what it feels like, because there's a fun to these Miles Morales books. It's a really good showing. The writer clearly knows the characters well. He puts a lot of tension in places where I don't expect to see tension. And he sort of hits the whole teenage hero angst really, really good. So this is no different. Miles, this is sort of slicing the life for Spider-Man. It's like Miles is sort of dealing with stuff and sort of navigating, you know, his family life, the dating scene, and everything else. There's nothing super major in this, but it's still really, really good. So yeah, Miles Morales Spider-Man, it flies off our shelves. If you can get a copy, get it, because it's good. Next is, well, it's weird. It's weird. It's Warlord of Mars. So, do you know who this character is?
John Carter.
John Carter. John Carter of, is it John Carter of Earth?
Oh, it's John Carter of Mars.
John Carter of Mars, right?
Yeah.
But wasn't he originally from Earth?
He was.
And-
Civil War fighter and everything.
And I have to ask, I never knew this, but was He-Man patterned after him with, like, that look?
I don't think
He
so.
looks so
But
much
yeah,
like
I see a
him.
lot of He-Man.
And yeah, I see so much He-Man in that. So this is Mars Attacks meets John Carter of Earth, and it's weird. It's weird. But you know what you're getting if you're reading Mars Attacks. Is you're getting the Ack, and you're gonna get some old-timey sci-fi, and so it just goes well with John Carter. It just feels right. I don't know. The one thing we didn't get enough of, but the funny kills that you get from the Mars attacks, Martians, I need more of that. That didn't happen enough in this issue. I'm hoping because it doesn't start out on Earth, it sort of moves to Earth, so maybe we'll get more of that in the next issue. But Warlord of Mars attacks, pretty good showing for that sort of thing. Old sci-fi, if you like old sci-fi stuff, that'll appeal to you. Next is Deadpool. Can we even call Mars Attacks old sci-fi? Like, it was based on those cards?
Yeah, which retro sci-fi, like 60s, 50s
yeah.
stuff, yeah. But in fact,
So it was retro sci-fi, but the movie was like the modern times. So
and they were trying to build that since the 80s. They were trying to make that movie since the 80s.
Huh.
And it didn't make it until right around Independence Day, which killed it, I think.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, ID4 was amazing.
I don't know. I like Mars Attacks. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
Okay, so next is Deadpool. And this is the War of the Realms wrap-up. And it was a good showing. I basically, Deadpool is helping out Australia. Australia has a troll problem, and Deadpool's helping out Australia. And it goes about as bad as you'd expect. And pretty much everyone gets tired of dealing with Deadpool. Everyone on the super teams get tired. They all start complaining about Deadpool. Deadpool gets mad, storms off. And you know this recipe.
Yeah.
He's going to do something in the end that fixes it. But it was a really good showing. And I think the surprises of seeing how bad he can mess up at times is always worth seeing. So, yeah. One of the stronger War of the Realms titles, which I think got added late and at times felt rushed, but I still had such a good time with it. Because it almost felt like they were like, okay, War of the Realms is doing well. Let's throw a couple more titles at it. Where else have we done Australia yet? No? Well, let's just throw Deadpool in there. Let's just throw Deadpool in Australia, see what happens. That's what it felt like. It worked. So, yeah, okay, go pick this up. It's fun.
Monster truck on the cover.
Yeah, it is a monster truck. And he is... what's worse is, like, he has the sword, he has this cape, but he's got, in the comic, he's got, like, furry, like, what are they, shoulder pauldrons?
Yeah.
What do you call those? He's got, like, he looks very War of the Realms. I loved it.
Okay.
So, yeah, it was cool. Burn Nightwing Burn. So this is more Nightwing. It centers around the other Nightwings. They finally decided that their designations are Nightwing Gold, Nightwing Blue, Nightwing Red, and I don't know what you'd call Rick Grayson because he's just Nightwing makeshift costume.
Okay.
But like I'm as a Bat fanboy, it's hard for me to say this, but I'm tired of the Team Nightwing stuff. I'm tired of it. I thought it was great, and now I'm getting worn out about it because it plays out the same way all the time. Like the guy who's really gun shy gets himself into trouble and gets hurt. The girl who's really gung ho gets herself into trouble and gets hurt. The other Nightwings the Fireman Nightwing, he should stay, but the rest of them should shove off. I'm tired of them. Give it back. Make Dick Grayson again, and make the I don't know, Nightwing Red. Make him a thing too, and then get rid of the rest of them because I'm tired of them. But it's hard for me to say that because I'm a giant Batman fanboy and I love everything Bat Family, and I'm not having the best time with this.
Well,
So
I knew you were having a really good time at the very beginning.
The very beginning, yeah. But okay, so if you must know, he's dealing with a meta that is a fire sort of lava monster, and they've got to deal with that, and it felt sort of like a little... I mean, I know they did it, they started it up last issue, but it just felt kind of like filler. I don't know. What I want to see is I either want to see the other Nightwing characters grow, or I want to see them die off. Like, you can pick one or the other. And I need him back in a costume that isn't that ugly. Like, I'm tired of seeing that.
The cynic in me is like, kill them all.
It's hard for me to say that, but I got to be honest with my reviews, you know. I'm not having the best time with it. Next is a book I had a really good time with, and it still weirds me out that I like this book. It's Planet of the Nerds. So if you don't know, this is if the jocks from Revenge of the Nerds were frozen in time back in the 80s and then got thawed out in this day and age, you know, they'd run around going, nerds, we gotta get those nerds. That's what's happening in this book, and it's great. It's great. So the last issue, they started a riot in a Comic-Con. They didn't know a Comic-Con was a thing. They were totally shocked by it. Ran through screaming nerds and beating people up. They start off this issue by jacking some shopkeeper for food. Calling him names and running away. And they're sort of coming to the term that the world's not the safest place. The person who froze them actually has a corporation. And it's funny because, like, the three of them walk up and there's, like, a building there. And they're like, of course he's got his own building. And one of them's like, I'd have my own building if I didn't get frozen. And the other one's like, yeah, right. Yeah, I'm having the best time with this. More importantly, I really like the art. And we're starting to see why the jocks were bullies the way they were. And you're getting a little backstory on that, and you're starting to say, like, you know, I kind of get why that was the case. So I don't know, having a great time with this stuff. This Ahoy Comics is doing some good things these days, right?
Coming out of nowhere with that.
Yeah. So Planet of the Nerds, go pick this up if you can find it. We only have a few copies. The last comic on our list for this week, I am super tired, by the way. The last comic on our list for this week is Star Wars TIE Fighter. Now, this basically follows the TIE Fighter Squadron. They've been betrayed. They've sort of got to deal with some things. They're wondering who sold them out and why. And they're getting to the bottom of it. It's not a super deep plot, but it is sort of cool to see. And it's nice to see the camaraderie behind an Imperial team. And it's also kind of cool to see that, you know, sometimes, like, one group's heroes is the other group's villains and vice versa. And so that sort of plays out in this. So I've been having a great time with this Star Wars TIE Fighter book, and more people need to discover this.
Yeah.
It's a really good showing. So yeah, go pick this up if you can find it on the shelf. We've only got a few copies. Star Wars TIE Fighter #3. Jump in on this, please. And I guess we're going to do our drawing. So
Okay.
should we do that?
We should do that.
Okay.
So no big tumbler today, guys.
No big tumbler. We've got it in a box. I'm just going to shuffle it around. And let's see. First number is 99 or 66. Oh, my God.
Oh, here we go. Let's find out.
I think it's 99.
Jonathan Hernandez.
Jonathan Hernandez. You won a poster.
All right.
Next is 86.
Nick Stankovic.
Nick Stankovic. You won a poster. And 40.
Jacob Kleinheinz.
Jacob Kleinheinz. You won a poster. So come through and pick out a poster. And that's our show for the week. So...